Her shirt was so funny. I didn't
What
even,
did
we
it?
didn't even bring
I
it.
wanted to bring it up, but
Yeah.
what was that?
We'll bring it up in the intro. Or is it still recording?
Yeah, it's still
All
going.
right.
Well,
Yeah,
what did it say?
It said, "I am bellissima," just like I'm beautiful in Italian, and I always am or something, and always will be, something like that.
I love it.
Yeah, I didn't remark it while we talked. Every time we had such a flow. Every time I spoke, I felt like I was breaking the flow. It was kind of like annoying. Like I didn't want to. I feel like we could have just kept going. We just kept activating thoughts in each other and kept like bouncing back and forth.
That could just be the inner critic because I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, it was still fun. It was amazing. Yeah. So okay, we're doing an intro. I'm bad at this. Alyssa.
Well, what's up, everyone? First.
Yeah, no, I forgot her last name right now. Marsillo. Anyway, we'll Alyssa the yogi.
Yes, that was a beautiful conversation, man.
Yeah, no, she's dope, man. She's amazing.
She's got a vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely got a vibe. Really, really fun. Good energy behind her.
You could tell she's been in the trenches. You could tell she's got to practice. And she has the, let's say, informed confidence to be a good yoga teacher, like a yogi in her life, and now like a life coach, which is always a kind of, to me, an ambiguous title, but like she just has so many tools, and she says it in the podcast. She talks about how a lot of yoga informs her coaching. And I'm just like, I at the end, you guys will see, I told her, like, I would love to use your services. I just feel like she has such a good head on her shoulders if you want to use that.
I love that she's incorporating her past knowledge into this field, into one, like, because yoga, like you said in the podcast, it means union.
Yeah.
So yoga in its own is a form of life coaching, just self-life coaching. You know, you learn so much through your practice. so
good point.
So she kind of bringing that into helping people achieve their goals and enjoy their lives more and have more fulfillment. It's like she's using like a proven method reinforced into this field. I think it's gonna be powerful, and I think she's probably doing amazing work already. Just by hearing her, it was just a really nice conversation, filled with wisdom and, you know, compassion and acceptance.
Yeah, and very kind of timely, like very like everything that's going on now. Like we kind of touched it on the podcast, but it was. I like how you said that. Like she's very wise and very intelligent, but there was a lot of compassion. There was a lot of just like love, and I feel like me and you are on a vibe that's similar right now, and that it just felt good to talk to someone else who was like open to be loving, open to be to kind of forego fear. And just be like, let's have some fun, you know. Let's celebrate the body, like I said at the end. Like let's just
enjoy yourselves.
Yeah,
I actually wanted to bring this up on the podcast, but we'll bring it up here. There's a new thing I've been doing. My client told me about it, and it's blowing my mind. It's as soon as you wake up, you can either journal it. I need to journal it. I've been doing it internally, mentally, but the moment your eyes wake up, 5 things you're grateful for. Just say it in your mind. 5 things.
Nice.
Dude, I've been doing it. It's like NLP in a sense. It changes your whole mood the whole day, because you'll remember what you said. And even if you don't remember, your brain pattern completely switched to looking for 5 positive things. Because I would wake up, I would grab my phone, I'd look at the news or something negative would just pop up, because these systems are built that way, right? It's just like dopamine, and usually response comes to something scary, or you'll click something negative.
Even if it's not negative. Like
it's just a flash, and you're not in control of the content you're receiving if you look at your phone.
That's a good point. Yeah, like I totally want to try this, because lately I've been realizing that I'm avoiding the phone when I wake up, and I'm giving myself these like, even if it's fucking 10 minutes of just wake up slowly, or maybe wake up at fucking like 11 like I did today, and just don't be so in a rush to like start the day in that artificial way and then busy, and that really does color the rest of my day. And I didn't notice until I stopped. So I took away something, and it made such an impact. So if I threw that in,
it's a game changer.
At
least for me. So I'm gonna try. I want to get like a beautiful, nice little. I'm weird. I like cool little journals that has to kind of be symmetrical and nice. Yeah. So I'm gonna find one, and I'm just gonna, as soon as I wake up, write 5 things. You know, like this morning, I was grateful for my bed sheets, because they're so comfortable. I was grateful for like my heart giving me blood and life. You know, like some random things, but it's it wasn't intentional, like thinking about it. It was really what's popping in my head, And then I was grateful for Lily for just being so cute and cuddly.
I think that's the way to do it, that it becomes an honest practice. Instead of saying like, I am grateful for, like, it's like Thanksgiving. It's like, I'm thankful for my family and for the food. And it's like, you're just naming things. Like, sit there and be like, man, I'm so happy like that there's gravity and I'm not flying around. Like, it sounds,
we're grateful for this couch. Like, we're sitting on a comfortable couch.
I'm so grateful Alyssa took the time. Like, you have these moments and these feelings, and like you had such an honest response. Like, my blood is pumping through my body right now.
That's awesome. I'm alive.
It's like it's so like unadulterated. It's so honest, and like my sheets, I'm so comfortable right now. Like that's the way to do it. You know what? Comment, guys. Fucking put some comments in the this video and tell us 5 things that you're grateful for, and sit there for a second and really feel it. And we would love to blast you guys with some hearts and comments and things. And I just want to see what you guys are grateful for.
Yeah, we're grateful for all of you. Like, we see the numbers. We
Boom! Turned it around on you.
We see people are listening, and it's just awesome. Like, Sammy and I spoke about it. We have a lot of listeners that are just tuning in and just check out our videos, and I love it. But it would be really helpful. We spoke about this on the phone before. Just if you guys could just press subscribe. There's like a little bell next to it, so it keeps you notified when we have another video.
Guys. Yes, press the things.
Yeah, it's going to really help us out and just help grow this channel. And we want to get like some real, we're getting super awesome guests, and we want to continue that. And in this world, the bigger your audience, the better the guests usually. I hate to use that word better, but it's
a snowball effect.
Yeah.
You know, you get, some people want that number. They need that number.
Yeah.
It's just a reality. And I mean, algorithm wise, you click like, it doesn't cost you anything, and more people are going to see our videos. And then more people are going to like, and it's all these things are snowball effects, and we will get, you know, like I've said it before, we'll get bigger fish. We'll get bigger. I don't want to come out of.
Listen, everyone, a personal goal of mine is to get Graham Hancock on. So I'm just going to put it out there.
Dennis McKenna, Joey Diaz.
Yes.
I want some fun people that I love and respect, and I want them to blow our minds, and you guys are going to help us make it happen. So if you're on iTunes, put some 5 stars.
Yeah.
You know, if you're on YouTube, you know, like, comment, share, all that fun stuff.
Even say hi to us. Like, we want to start to connect with you all and just talk to you. So throw us a comment, send us a message.
Yeah, full disclosure, we didn't know how to do that before. And I just started responding on YouTube to the comments. And I've been responding to people that commented like 9 months ago, and they must just see like a notification
what
today.
the fuck?
Yeah, what the fuck's going on? So yeah, we're figuring it out, but we're having fun, and I hope you're having fun too. And I guess that's it. Stay curious, guys. We fucking love you, and
we'll see you next time.
Stay tuned. Yeah.
Yes. What's up, beautiful people? I'm Nathaniel Pearl.
And I'm Sammy Sheva.
And welcome to Curious Chimps Podcast, a show where we explore the infinite complexities of the human experience.
We do not endorse anything illegal, so please consult doctors, do your research, and for the love of all that is holy, be safe. All right, let's talk about drugs.
Curious Chimps.
Alyssa, how are you? It's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it was the summertime since we last saw each other.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot has changed.
It's the first time I'm meeting you, so hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I'm Alyssa.
This is Nate.
There you go.
Hi, Nate.
Be friends.
I've heard a lot about you.
Hopefully good stuff.
Yes, of course, definitely. I just like it's interesting, you know, like when you have like someone like with just their name and like, oh, I do a podcast with them, and then you actually see their face and you're like, oh, cool. Like now I can actually correlate something together.
All the expectations die, and it just goes like into
Yeah.
reality. Like just
No
okay.
expectations. I can't live with expectations anymore.
Oh,
Actually, my
yeah.
coach told me the other day, what did she say? High expectations, but no attachments. And I was like, wow, that's pretty yogi of you.
Yeah.
No attachments.
Like, you know, like you expect, like, let's say some sort of value, or you expect some sort of like outcome, but you're not attached to how it comes. You're not attached to whether or not it comes. You're not attached to like the good or the bad of it. You're just kind of like,
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
literally karma yoga. It's like discernment and effort, but no judgment, no expectation. And it's weird because those words are really close together, but they're
Totally.
not the same. Yeah.
Expectation always leads to disappointment. You know, because
that's a
it's
big
like
one.
the ego kind of puts it to the standards that is
It's
not realistic.
disappointment in a way. You're literally like priming disappointment with expectation. But I like how you're saying, no, expect, but like don't be attached to the result. It's good to have
Exactly.
that human.
Like if you want, like, let's say a job, you're like, yeah, I have high expectations for a job. Like I know I'm going to, you know, like I want to make, let's say this amount, or like I want this type of benefits or this type of schedule. So like I have my expectations, you know, for myself, but at the same time, I'm not attached to like what job it is. Like if it's job A, job B, job D.
Yeah, I feel you.
That's hard in practice, though.
Totally.
Are you sure we're recording? I didn't see the thing in the background.
For which one?
The audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just used to seeing it. I just freaked out for a second.
We're trying it out, just the screen this time.
I was like, things have changed.
It's okay. Worst case, I'll see you next Wednesday.
Boom. That's it. No expectations.
Exactly.
I have been letting go of expectation like fully lately, and it's not easy because it's just not human. It's not natural in a weird way, or it's just not something I'm used to. But I feel like you're alluding to something that I've been hitting a wall lately, where it's like I have to put effort and I have to move forward and I have to have some kind of, hope, I guess might be a word. I just, having this kind of desire to activate the future or let it in some weird way. And because all those words I used can be kind of negative sometimes. There could be this kind of like stay in the moment and presence, and it's like, yeah, but I'm a human being. Like I'm always in the moment. If I'm thinking of the future, that's what I'm doing in the moment. Like it's semantics, right? Yeah.
Totally. I think that there's a lot of like misconstrued like perceptions of like, let's say like being in the moment and then like taking the time to, let's say, heal past trauma. Like, sorry, we have to go towards like the past to heal that. Or if we're setting goals for the future and what we kind of want the direction of our life to go, like we do have to kind of like imagine ourselves, past this present moment and kind of tap into like another place, another level of consciousness. So yeah, I think a lot of people nowadays are taking like a lot of the, let's say, Eastern or like more Zen philosophies. And I don't know if it's our society, but everybody's just like tearing everything down and like literally ripping it to shreds when like it's really not that complicated. Like be in the moment, if you're sitting here having a podcast with like, someone, like, are you thinking about what you're going to do after this? Are you thinking of your grocery list? Okay, like that's not being in the moment, but like you can't always fully be in the moment, especially I think when the moment is a little bit like hard, like maybe it's emotional, maybe we're going through something, maybe it's difficult and we do want to disassociate, we do want to tap out of our body, like
100%.
I was sick sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, please, I was just agreeing with you. I'm just nodding.
Oh, sorry. I'm a bit weird sometimes. I'm a socially awkward human. I'm just gonna put it out there.
I think it's why
now.
I love you. Yeah, we get along.
I love you too, but I'm still socially awkward.
You're my kind of people.
But keep going. What were you saying about?
I was sick. Like I was sick a couple of days ago. Like nothing serious. Definitely not COVID. I'm still here alive. But like I had a meeting with my coach, and she was like always. Like, she's like, why do you always like kind of want to get out of the moment? I'm like, well, the moment's uncomfortable. I'm sitting here in pain. Like, I'm not comfortable with that. And I think that's where we need to be in the present moment. That's where we really need to sit within the discomfort of like, yeah, this sucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the healing process, is when you're in the pain and then you accept that moment and experience the pain instead of avoiding it. Like, I think everyone can relate to being in let's say a breakup, for example, a really bad breakup. Like some people will go into substance abuse for a while or just start doing some random shit. Yeah, but just to numb themselves. But the only way to really get out of it is like that moment where they cut everything out and they just focus on how they're actually feeling. I think it's also the anticipation, or there's like a lot of things that are pulling you away from experiencing that pain and sensation. But once you accept it and observe it, it's almost like, it's like a light switch change, at least in my experience.
I love the way you said it, though. Like, that's the point.
Yeah.
I've noticed that pain gets me, or discomfort. Like, you said it perfectly. I don't even know how to change what you said. Like, you said it perfectly. You're disassociating. You're not in the moment because there's just discomfort, and you're just going into some kind of shell or some kind of like protective mentality. And in truth, that's a kind of worry, because the past made you uncomfortable, and now you have these aversions. It's like you said, it's pretty simple, but it's like you can't take it apart. It's like basic fucking Zen or like Buddhism or something like that. And I really have noticed that it kicks you out of the moment. So you have to work through that. But for some reason, I've never said it that way. Like, that is the point of the moment. That is the thing you need to do with the pain, is to actually look at it, actually manipulate it, and then the byproduct, sort of like this, the downstream effect, is that you end up in the moment, because that's what the moment was at the time. And then you kind of take the power away, you kind of deflate it, you kind of define the edges. Instead of it being this bigger, ominous thing in your mind, you really face it. And that can take months and a bunch of fucking weed or something. Who knows? But but on the other side, you're more, you know yourself better. You're more comfortable with your ability to handle yourself and your emotions, and it's just so many good things about that. And then you just end up again in the moment, because you're just lighter.
Yeah, like you basically summed it up, like we do want to retract all the time when it's uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, like it ends up being the catalyst. So I feel like we fight with ourselves a lot of like, no, like I can't, especially today, like with all this spirituality, like all good vibes all the time. Like that is such spiritual, like bypassing, like life is not just like good vibes all the time. Like, no, sometimes there's good, sometimes there's bad. And naturally, when something bad happens, it's like putting your hand on the stove. What do? It hurts, you retract. So that's what we want to do. We want to retract ourselves. But ultimately, like, if you don't go through that moment or that trauma or that breakup or whatever really is in your sphere in this moment, like how are you going to go into the rest of your life, without facing any adversity or challenge and stuff? And
if you don't focus on that moment and you kind of just retract and stay retracted, like, yeah, you will get over it. I'll put like bunny, like quote unquote, but that pattern is just formed, and that pattern is going to be another pattern that's going to be reinforced in future events where you need to retract, and you're just going to retract, wait a few months, you'll feel better, and then you just continue on, and then before you know it, you've been doing that for 20, 30 years, and then your life kind of implodes, and then there's like a huge moment of just like a pitfall, and it's because of those earlier moments of not facing that trauma or that pain or whatever it is. So it's really important to get present. Like Eckhart Tolle, he always talks. Yeah, Tolle. I think it's Tolle. Yeah, but he talks about it as like that's the pain body. Is like you reinforce this system, and it's kind of grows, and the system is avoiding that present moment, and it's just like it gets stronger and stronger.
Yeah, when people say pain body, or like I say body of pain, because when someone says a body of work, like someone's like an academic, they have a body of work. I see a body of pain now. Like I see it that way. You literally have these like memories and things you can kind of pull from, and almost like references. Like the way an academic would have references in their body of work. You have references in your body of pain, and you're describing like avoidance. Like you literally go through this reaction, and then you want to justify the reaction because none of that felt good, and you're just avoiding the thing that caused the reaction, the reason you reacted that way, and you're just stepping backwards, and then it becomes this unconscious cycle, and we lose context. And I mean, another way of saying context is the moment. We lose what's really going on right now.
And it's tricky though, because
cool.
It's tricky
I
though.
Never put it that way. Yeah.
Because like she was saying about the communities, the spiritual communities, is a lot of it is like just pushing like positive vibes, like, oh, it's all good vibes. Yeah. But in a way, that could be some clever way of the ego embedding itself in more avoidance. It's just like, oh, good vibes, and then they're just hiding the pain under that. And yeah, you're preaching something powerful, like good vibes. Let's be on high frequency, but you're not cleaning the basement. I like to call it. It's like there's some shit underneath, and it's rotting up. So it's like you got to go down and dirty and get your feet wet and get your hands dirty and fix what's ever needed to be fixed underneath. And that's the only way to truly be present.
Yeah, facing whatever is happening.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome, by the way. This is super great.
I know. We're gonna do like an intro in the edit afterwards, but like you're a yoga teacher by trade. I might even give you the name Yogi. I feel like you live it more than most people. but I might be assuming there.
But in the more original term, like there's yogis now that are just like Instagram famous and just doing the poses. Like yoga is so much deeper than that.
But I wanted to bring it up because I want, like you have a finger on the pulse. Like you're in these communities, you know. So I just want to kind of preface that. Like I really like your opinion is based in a lot of experience. So I just wanted to throw that in there. And you can intro yourself a little bit. Like I said, we're gonna say something at the beginning, but like feel free to correct me as well. I consider you a friend, obviously, but I don't feel like I know you that deeply. I don't know like what your life is about. I don't know what you do day to day. I just kind of yoga teacher. Like that's my my big like hat that I put on you.
That's fair. That's, you know what? It's a hat that I've worn for many years, actually. So I actually did start teaching in 2013. I like to say before it was cool to teach because everybody became a yoga teacher like post 2015. But I took not a little break from yoga, but COVID obviously made everything a little bit more challenging to teach, obviously, because we're not teaching in studios anymore. So I actually I embodied being a life coach. I actually took a few more courses and I actually developed my own coaching business where I do add a lot of yoga and meditation because I do think that yoga, meditation, were pivotal in my healing. And I think it's also a good way for people to get introduced to spirituality. Like you can't just tell someone like, hey, let's go to a shadow work workshop and like face our inner demons. You're like, let's just go to a yoga class and like kind of like, you know, connect to your body, connect to your breath. So yeah, I'm going to add on to my hat of being a life coach, but my coaching is very based in spirituality. So we do look at, you know, the yoga ethics and like what it means to be a yogi, which is just far beyond the mats. You know, we're not just like doing poses for 8 hours a day and like, you know, and then we're yelling at someone in traffic, you know, 3 minutes after we leave the class. We all have our moments. I have mine too, obviously. But I really had to work with all these modalities of coaching and yoga and spirituality and meditation to really heal myself. Yeah, I had a temper. Sometimes I still have a temper. I had a lot of trauma that I had to work through from childhood. And I think that, you know, it kind of just shifted to like, okay, like how can I take care of me? How can like you take care of you, you know? And it really comes down to like just connecting with self. And I think the easiest way to do that is with yoga.
Nice. Yeah. I find a lot of people I met, and myself included, who are a little more deep in the practice, really fucking just needed it. And you know, to speak kind of stupidly and broadly, we're all nuts. Like we all just really like found something that's maybe like a little, I don't know, I want to say maybe like secular or a little just speaks to us maybe in some kind of deep way that we can't understand, in some kind of a past life way if you want to get into that shit. But like you know, it's a way that other modalities of spirituality have also started resonating through yoga to me, you know, and it's kind of endless. And I just kind of want to call it like a science of humanity, of being human, you know, of like wellness and of body and mind and spirit and all the bodies and all the ideas that can really contain the human experience. And when you put it that way, hopefully when I put it that way, it kind of takes, it's very mysterious and very broad, but it kind of takes some of the magic out of it in that sense where people are turned off by it because they're like, oh no, that's not my box or my like religion or my whatever. And it's like, it's everybody's, you know, like most people at this point know yoga means union. And when you think of it in that general sense, it's like, you and your body, your body and your mind, you and other people, you and the world, you and your everything, anything where there's a thing and another thing, you know? And it's like a really profound spiritual science in that sense. And that's my opinion.
Is, right? It is a science, right? Like it's, you know, it's so ancient. And okay, because I was actually having this debate with someone last week because they were telling me that yoga is a what did he call it? Did he call it a cult? He's like a cult and a religion. And I was like, okay, why do you feel that way? He's like, well, it's based off of like Hinduism. I'm like, okay, it's based off Hinduism and Jainism and Buddhism. We're just like, it's a way of life. Like we're not, you know, there's no worshiping of anybody really within yoga. Like
it's like a prostration for some schools, but like
But
yeah,
I think
like
that,
the teacher for sure, you know, there's like, you know, we look up to them, but like I don't know, like there was never really like some like entity in like the universe that we were in the yoga that I've done that we were kind of like praying to or whatever. It was always like just a way to come back to like self, you know, and just know more about yourself and kind of like go through the deep layers of like, well, like the koshas they call them, but I mean like just like layers of self, just in plain English. So I just thought it was interesting because some people still think that it's like this religion and like this, like you said, secular thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna agree to disagree.
The word cult bounces around a lot for sure.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. I think that's just like a resistance point that they, like a term that they throw out to kind of negate. But when you really look into it, like at least for the studios I've been to, it's the furthest thing from a cult. It's just like, it's all preaching, connecting to your inner self and your breath and your body and your mind. And like,
it's almost like when you come back from a place, maybe you left for a week or a month, but like you come back and you're like, this thing works. This made me feel something new, and they're like they instantly get defensive.
We got to bring that up. That's a good point, because this kind of practice can change someone so much, and for their circle of friends, it can be like a catastrophic change, and maybe they're not going to be friends with that same group after because
there's a clear resistance.
Yeah, because something changed in them, and they just realize, you know what, this kind of relationship's not serving me, and it's nothing to do with the other people. It's how they're responding to it. Because let me give an example, because I did Vipassana. I'm sure you've heard of it, the 10-day silent retreat. We spoke about it a bunch on the show. But I remember I was telling a group of friends before going that I'm going, and then one of my friends was saying, oh, I had my friend's brother-in-law did it. It's like a cult because he came back, he was completely different. He just dropped all his friends. Now he goes around barefoot in nature and whatever. And I'm like listening to that. I'm like, it's maybe especially after the Vipassana, I had a whole other perspective. But I remember like maybe that these people weren't serving him after that. You know, like he came back and realized that he wasn't living his personal truth, you know, and he kind of needed to just shed that relationship. Yeah. So I can see people seeing these.
Bro.
Yeah,
you're gonna learn some shit.
Yeah. So I think with some people that go to yoga and they start meditating more and doing some like life changes, it can be a shock for their circle and stuff, and that's where it can seem like a cult.
Yeah, if you're Italian and you tell your parents to stop eating meat or something, like, bro, they're gonna have some questions. Yeah.
Yeah, you start meditating twice a day, and they're like, "What the fuck's going on?" But you know, it's a good thing. It's positive.
Honestly, yeah. I think it's a lot of like what happened with like the perceptions of others. Really, that kind of, it kind of taints it sometimes, or like people like will just pass a judgment on like, let's say if you don't know. I know I come from an Italian family as well. And like when I was always a little bit of a weirdo. Like I was always like, not really the black sheep, but like I did weird stuff, you know? So like, they're like, oh, you're not like eating meat again. Or like, you know, like when I actually went to Vipassana too. And they were like, oh, like, you know, you're going to like a cult retreat. And I was like, listen, guys, I don't know if I come back and like, I went from like this amount of anger because like I said, I had my trauma and I had my moments, and I come back with this amount of anger. Like, I don't care what it is, because I know it's not a cult, but I really don't care what it is, you know?
That's a good point, is the proof's in the pudding. Like you said before, it really is a science. Like, but the authority and the scientist and the results, it's all inside, and it's hard to give that to the other person sometimes. It really only speaks through kind of consistent action that comes from the practice, comes from the changes. And even then, only some people are going to really see and accept those changes. And I like what you said. Like, there's labels also that kind of stop us, that have that resistance, or maybe we use them to reinforce our resistance. Like you're talking about the Hindu roots of yoga. And I'm not a historian, but I read somewhere in a book, so I repeat it all the time, that like Hinduism wasn't really a labeled religion, you know? So that's another thing that you can tell people is like, you get this like British colonialism and they say, okay, like they believe in all these deities and blah, blah, blah. If you ask like a devout Hindu, everything's God. So that's why they have all these like deities and all these things. They don't care. They're not worshiping Shiva because Shiva is God. Shiva is of God and is like way closer and like a interesting like a avatar or like a divination of this like corporeal human thing. And we are too. And every single person, you know, the one guy said, you know, if there's if 7 billion people on the planet, there's 7 billion gods. They said it that way, you know. And another thing I say actually about Vipassana, I just remembered this. If like a lot of people jump on it as a cult for all the reasons we just talked about, but I tell them something that blows their mind. They don't accept money unless you've done the program. They will not take your money unless you've done the 10 days. And that's what other cult is going to like think of put that against like Scientology or something like that.
It's true.
It's night and day.
I think that when you're like tapped into something that's greater than yourself, you know, and that really does come through spirituality or like very rarely some, you know, some religious things. It doesn't become about the material anymore. It's like whether you do this or not, like, you know, at the end of the day, like it's serving you. Like whether you come to Vipassana or not, like it doesn't change anything in my life. Whether you take a yoga class, like it doesn't, like everybody's just connected within themselves when like in the spiritual community. So I think that when people are judging, it's because they're so fixated on everything else. They're fixated on the externals. They're fixated on, you know, what their mother-in-law is doing. They're fixating on what their boss said about them. Like it's always an external projection because realistically, when you tap into yourself, like whatever is happening on the outside, you're just like, okay, this is a reflection of my inside. Perfect. Let me go within and see what's up.
That's a great point. And you've kind of solved the mystery I've had of why people are so fixated on what I, like for my person, I'll use myself, like on what I do seems to be a big deal for so many people, whether it's like a 7-day fast or just going outside in November, December with a shirt or just, you know,
sandals,
wearing flip-flops in winter, like things that are just, I'm challenging myself becomes such a concern for so many people and in my circle. And it's exactly that. It's because they're so fixated externally, and when they see someone doing something crazy, it's like a knee-jerk response, panic mode, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like at Vipassana where you did the one in Montebello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were under a Goenka, powerful Goenka. But yeah, he said like but he said like a story where, like, I'm gonna paraphrase it very briefly, but like someone asked like the wife what was going on with the family. She said, "Oh, if everything was perfect, but my husband changed something, it would be perfect." Then the husband said the same thing about the wife, and the son said the same thing about the mother. The daughter said the same thing about the father. So everyone had something about the other person that they needed to change, and the whole premise was that no one said anything about themselves that needed to change. But like that was such a powerful moment at my practice. I'm like, yes, that's like the key that's been missing in my life. Is just that's how you make change. Is really the inner journey, and that's why the spiritual journey. Some of the first hurdles when you go on this path is dealing with your environment around you. You know, the resistance you get from your loved ones and your friends.
You're still looking outward, It's hard to maybe ever turn that off. But I know I like the way you put it. There's like once you kind of touch something. Especially just a regular, like a daily meditation practice, I think for me is the best for that. Is just to make some space between yourself, whatever that is, your awareness, this raw awareness, and then the mind and the body, and just having this kind of 3 ways of experiencing things. I don't even know if that's the right way of putting it, but it's hard to describe. But having that space, having that like moment of intellectual realization that it doesn't have to be all reaction, suddenly you start looking at things a little more indifferently. Again, maybe that's not the right word, you know, like you can still be involved and maybe even more deeply involved because you're less afraid to be involved, but you're just less invested in the outcome, like we talked about at the top of the episode. Like it's really liberating and it's really like it causes like it's scary at first. It's like a roller coaster, but but you're happier like in the long run. It's just that you're letting go of a lot of expectations. You're letting go of a lot of who you think you should be, and all these crazy. It snowballs. It gets so deep, you know. It's like intimidating sometimes, but it's like the work. Like, what else are you gonna do on this fucking planet?
I mean, other than suffer, if you're just fixated on the outside, like not much, you know. I think that like, and I think that's the reason why so many people are suffering, because it's like, you know, we want to disassociate so much from like what's going on within us. And like, I'm sure you guys have seen the meme of like, you know, what I thought spiritual awakening was, and they're like super happy, and then it's like really like, but what it really is, and it's like someone like crying and like, you know, going through all their trauma. And it's like, you know, how do we expect to live in a more state of flow? How do we expect to live in a more state of abundance and grace if we have, like Nathaniel said, all this like this, you know, junk, or like all of the stuff that's like basically like fermenting at like in our basement, you know, if we're not taking the time to tend to that, you know. So, you know, everybody kind of wants this like shortcut of like, you know, just being like Zen or like spiritually aware, or Maslow's hierarchy, you know, to reach enlightenment. But it's like, okay, but like there are steps that are required, and half of those steps are super uncomfortable. Like the shadow side is not like, welcome, Alyssa, you know, like let me show you a PowerPoint of what's been going on. Like, no, it just slaps you in the face and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm still dealing with this because I didn't let it go.
And over time, it just gets bigger and bigger, because the longer you put it off, the more power it gets, you know. And then it kind of feels like it's gone for a while, and then it can just come right back in the worst kind of moments, you know.
And maybe in a way, it's always big. Like I know the Maslow, you said, like the pyramid, like the bottom. It's like foundational. I mean, maybe it's kind of bullshit sometimes. Maybe it doesn't always apply, but it's a very good way of looking at it. And maybe there's kind of a deeper metaphor there, like. You need that bigger thing, and when it's going wrong, it's like the whole foundation, this bigger thing is a bigger problem, and it just gets more like subtle and more delicate and more piercing as well, like kind of more powerful in a way, but more fragile at the same time, because it's like, I don't know, I'm losing my words a bit, but like there's like, if you picture like an actual physical pyramid, you know, like they're all the pressure on one point, suddenly you have all this power, because pressure is like the force, but also the surface area. So if you just have this dull, gross thing, and you know, at the bottom of the pyramid, it's like your basic needs are met. You know, like your root chakra, like your idea of survival and security and food and water, and kind of like these like basic things, so that you can move to the next step. Let's say, if that's not taken care of, it's such a. Sadhguru said it perfectly. He said, if a man is starving and you're offering him enlightenment, that's the cruelest thing. It's like feed him. Just like this, he doesn't care about enlightenment. Yeah.
Well, you nailed it, honestly, because every time I explain Maslow's hierarchy in my coaching, I always say it's like the chakras, right? Like we do need to like really have like the basic needs of the human to be met. And like, you know, like the chances that people didn't have some sort of traumatizing childhood, whether it was partially, whether it was immensely, like whatever it is, like that needs to be dealt with. I think that's more like second chakra, like the second layer of like, you know, the hierarchy. But it's like, essentially, you really do need that foundation. It's like building a house, right? If the foundation of your house is not really like sturdy, it's like made out of straw, like the Three Little Pigs, like, okay, the one inconvenience happens, and then like there goes your whole livelihood, you know, there goes your whole life. And I think that's why people have midlife crises, because like it wasn't a time, well, like the people that were experiencing them couple of years ago, when they were younger, they didn't have the tools, let's say, to be like, hey, are all your like basic needs met? Are all your emotional needs met? Like, how's your inner child trauma? Like, have you fixed any of that? You know, like everybody's just going around blindly, kind of like just doing what everyone else is telling them to do. And then we have a bunch of like really sad and hurt adults, because no one's taking the time to really like look within and be like, am I getting what I need? you know, out of my life.
And going back to the straw house, instead of taking the time, you don't have the tools to go deeper. You just keep making a straw house. It keeps getting knocked down, and it just makes you kind of panic more and more. When you're in those states, you're like, is this my life now? And is this going to keep happening? And that's kind of a trick of the mind, because you're just in a profound emotional state. And hopefully it's not the rest of your life. And probably most of the time it isn't. But if you keep making those mistakes and you get kind of stuck in a little knot or a loop, then you keep reinforcing that belief, and it's like even more fucked up.
Well, that's the problem is momentum could be a tool and a poison at the same time. Is sometimes you can be on that state, but there's so much momentum behind your work and progress, whatever. So you're just amplifying, and then you hit 50 years old, where it seems to be like the age for the midlife crisis, or 45, 50, and then they just do something absurd. And I think it's because that momentum reached its peak, and then, you know, they got what they've worked so hard to achieve, and they realize, I've been missing a huge chunk of my life, is just not actually fulfilled. And that's why, like, the midlife crisis is such an interesting phenomenon and so common. Everyone can tell someone about their uncle that decided to buy a Ferrari at like 50 or something, you know, like you hear that story all the time. But it's very interesting. It's like, I think momentum could be so powerful for the good and for the bad, because if you look on the inner journey and you start work on yourself, the momentum will carry you in a direction. If you avoid yourself, the momentum will carry you in a different direction. You know, but at some point you're going to have to meet yourself, you know, whether it's now 50 years or at your deathbed, it's going to come back up. It's there, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I think that if we take the time, as soon as it comes into our consciousness, or like whatever, at some point, like, you know, we're not putting it off till we're 50 years old, or like, we're not putting it off to our death, like until we're at our deathbed, because like, ultimately, I feel like the longer we're carrying around this like baggage, the harder and longer it is to sift through, the more painful it is to sift through, where it's like, okay, if you can identify some sort of trauma or limiting belief that happened, like, let's say when you were 15, and now you're looking at it like you're 30, like now from 30 on, you have less baggage, you have at least that aspect that's gone, and it makes just living, you know, in a state of flow and a state of grace a little bit easier, because you're not jaded or like hurt about all of the stuff that happened, you know. And it's not about avoiding it, it's really just like, okay, cool, thank you for teaching me, I'll move on now.
Yeah, thanking it is upside down for a lot of people. It's tough, but it really is. It's like holding a posture for 15 years, you know, like it's an asana in a weird way, and then it's hard to move the literal or metaphorical like fascia and to stretch it out and to kind of take a new shape, and those things take time. But I just love the way you put it, how momentum is like a good or bad thing, and a lot of people, I think a lot of people would benefit from hearing that, because when you're in the spiral, up or down, you really feel it. You start feeling the push behind on the back, you know, and it's I think it is happening earlier for a lot of people. Actually, you know what? Like, we're talking about midlife crisis. There's a stand-up comedy routine on Netflix called Quarter Life Crisis. This girl is 25 years old, and she's one of the funniest stand-up comedians I've ever seen. Her name's Taylor Tomlinson, and she's like a fucking genius. Like, she's a ninja, and it's like, you're 25? Like, I was an idiot when I was 25, and like, I had to do some conscious work. I had so much resistance. I still do. I see a lot of light at the end of the tunnel now. I feel like I am the light. Like, there's been such a progress. But man, she's there now. I'm like, yo, next gen, go. You know, humans, whatever, 17.0.
Thank God, though. I mean, like, thank God that people are waking up. I think that it's like, you know, I think humanity has reached its limit of like unconscious living. And I think that, like, you know, the sooner we have our breakdowns earlier on in life, you know, the sooner we become better parents, right? Like, because we're now more conscious, so we're not raising our children on our projections and on our traumas, you know. The sooner we can move into a state of living for ourselves, so that we don't need to have that midlife crisis at 50 years old, because it's like, yeah, you know what, at 25 I decided that I was going to do this for my career instead of what my parents wanted me to do. They wanted me to become an accountant, and I became an accountant. Now at 50 years old, I hate my life, I'm just going to move to Italy and like tell everybody have a great life, you know. Like, we need to find a balance. And I think the people that are waking up and having these these moments earlier on, it's really going to shape our world, I think, in a more positive light, because we need it. I think everybody's just sad adults right now.
Yeah, I think if I was a kid nowadays and I saw all the writing on the wall, like all these people who just like, you know, even our generation was like, hey guys, why did you like fuck the planet up so much? Like what, like there's that kind of meme almost where it's like you knew what you were doing, but as a species we have so much momentum and so much immaturity, so it's really unfair to like just blame your parents for like the I don't know, name a natural name a you know, human disaster of like nature, like a just
Pollution.
yeah, factory farming and oil spills, and like it's not my dad's fault. You know, it's but at the same time we, and then even more the younger kids are saying, what is my fault, or what is the thing I can control, like not in a blaming sense, hopefully, even though that is a thing we need to kind of go through and have these crises. And even later in life, you know, it's not a crisis maybe, but a midlife change, because you're more accepting of everything, of just like, okay, this is not my path, let's go somewhere else. But there is this hopefully just this like I avoid Amazon now. Like I don't buy things off Amazon. And when I tell people that, they look at me like I have two heads. And I'm like, it's fucking doable. Like go take a walk, go to the store, even though it's COVID, you know, and just figure it out. And it I mean, I've said this before, you know, but it's a little off topic, but I don't feel like there's much power left over other than boycotting. And I don't mean to diminish that. Like we're literally we have so much power on this planet and we don't realize it. And to tell someone that who doesn't feel that, again, they look at you like you're crazy. And it's like, well, everyone's carving a path on this planet. We're almost like the samskaras of the earth in a weird way. Like we're making a trail. We're literally scorching the earth, like with our lives, whether we like it or not. Maybe not as much as like Zuckerberg or Bezos or whatever, but we have so much influence. And even if we didn't, that's the work too. Like it's unrealistic to say we don't, but the all of it comes back to everything we're talking about is kind of interconnected. There's just this game of acceptance, of always accepting what's coming next and what's coming next. And sometimes I can't accept something, and I accept that. And it's this weird kind of geometry of like tricking myself or not tricking myself. I don't know. I'm ranting a little bit, but it's not as overwhelming as it used to be, and not as far-fetched as it used to be, to see the positivity, to see that things are so bad sometimes, so ruined, so like it's foolproof at this point. Everyone is like, okay, we know we need to do better. We can fix things. There's a lot of power, there's a lot of ingenuity, and there's a lot of hope.
Call me naive, but I really think it's just our nature to just to hit that point right before the point of no return, before we actually make a big change, at least individually. Like when someone hits rock bottom, like rock bottom would actually be death, but someone who gets right before that and then just says, I got to change my life, and just greatness comes out of that. I feel like collectively we kind of have to hit that all together in order to really make a big change. It's because it's like a human nature thing we don't realize until it's happening, you know? And so I'm extremely hopeful for the future. Maybe too hopeful. I don't know. Someone correct me, but I just feel like it's our spirit to pull through, you know?
Yeah, I think we came here. I mean, I see so many people that are so in the light, or like, you know, wanting to make a difference, and like that's what kind of like gives me hope. And I see a lot of people that are like taking the time to do their inner work and to be held accountable, right? So like kind of like what you were saying before, Sammy, with like, you know, I'm not going to blame the previous generation, but I mean, if I was 5, let's say, and every 40-year-old at that time is, you know, doing things to harm the planet, then like my accountability level and your accountability level are a little bit different here, because like you had the power, you could have made a choice. Maybe you knew better, maybe you didn't know better, like no problem, but still accept the accountability that like you kind of could have done something a little bit better. And I'm happy that all of these people that, you know, were on the way of ruining our planet are just getting older, and they're no longer as much in power. And it is, you know, our generation now that's getting a little bit, you know, older. We're getting more into the workforce. We're getting more into politics. Like at the end of the day, like our generation is next. Their generation isn't forever, you know, of these, you know, the people that kind of like, because they did, I think, from like 1970 to like at least early 2000s, like it was just like whatever is like, who cares about the planet? You know, if we're talking about the planet, who cares about other people? You know, like we're gonna just focus on like white people in America, British people, like, you know, there was no like third world countries, nobody really cared, you know, like that is all a result of carelessness or lack of connection with self, because if you're not connected with yourself, you're going to be completely dissociated with the world around you. So you are going to act out of your ego because you know nothing else.
Yeah, that trauma response, like when you're dissociating and protecting yourself, you're missing a lot. It's like looking at your phone while driving, you know, like you look down for a few seconds, but you're missing so many like meters, you know, like the train keeps moving, so to speak, like the car keeps moving. It's weird. It's really weird. And I think that it's almost impossible not to learn and to do better. And at the same time, there's kind of like like you were saying, like, we need to hit that rock bottom. That's the straw house, like we were talking about before, you know, and maybe we got to do that a few times, or we have done it a few times in the last like 30, 40 years as a human race. And it's just weird because like even Jesus said, like, or was it Jesus? Someone said, I am but one man. Like that quote. I don't remember the context. I don't know where it's from, but it's so powerful for someone who really knows their place in the universe, and to be very powerful and let's say enlightened, to say, I'm still just one guy. I can change the world, but I can't control everybody. I need to influence. I need to move in the way that I want to, and that I can in an honest and kind of let's just say love-filled way. And that does a lot, but the human intelligence, we're like neurons, you know, like we're like organs on the planet. Like we all have jobs. So many humans are so different. Some people are stronger physically, mentally. Some people focus more. Some people are more creative. Some people this, some people that. Like we have celebratable differences, you know? And there's so many growing pains with all of that because, like you said, there's this kind of colonialization mentality, British or Western or whatever, you know, and it turns into these weird things like racism and the real divisions are, in my mind, intelligence and wealth, and those are still kind of artificial. This is another topic, but the point is that even if we were all on a playing field, we would all be very different and want to do very different things and kind of find our families that are not necessarily blood, you know, and that's just a microcosm of the fact that we are all literally blood. And that's like overwhelming in a good way. I don't know what the word is. Like that's really exciting. And it's like we're starting to see this, like that's the deeper part of the presence, is that I am this singular human, but I also am part of this human family. And when you like, I'm hearing myself. It almost sounds a bit cliche, but it's like, it's just fucking true. It's just literally true. And it feels good, you know, and people who are feeling lost and depressed and they feel like they have no place in the world. Like I recently went through like a pretty long, depression, like a few months of just like almost a year. And eventually it was just finding tricks of like being, not tricks, but really just accepting what's going on, accepting the things I am, the things I'm not. I was forced to. And one of the things that happened a few months ago that was really relieving to me was just saying like, I need a mission. I need to be proud. I need to like be a human being in this fucking planet. And I couldn't really find anything. And so I told myself, just be a good person. You know, like the Dalai Lama says, like if you can't help, just don't hurt. And that's good enough. And good enough is good enough. And then I realized how actually profound that is. like to really spend the time and to turn something into my mission, even though it seems small. I'm not Bill Gates. I don't have $1 billion. I'm not like able to really control the world in this physical landscape through the economy, through money, through power. But my power that I admit and that I find, I go down to the ground level of my actual present moment, and it's like, just don't be a dick, and that could be actually pretty hard sometimes, but it's not impossible. And then it's a thin layer of the foundation, but it's like you do a lot of thin layers like that, like you're 3D printing, and the thing is so solid. And I'm feeling that now, and I love it. And I'm ranting a little bit, so I'm gonna stop. But like that thought, boom.
Well, I'll quote Jesus again. We're talking a lot about foundations, and I heard this a few times. It's like Jesus said, like, build your home on stone, not on sand. And what he's talking about is that sand blows away, right? So you can have your entire house built on sand and then it's gone. But on stone, it's there. It's solid. It's secure. And that's the layers. You got to go all the way back to that and add the cement or chip away till you find stone,
Yeah. And I think that that's where your spiritual journey really just kind of like happens. I think most of us end up on a spiritual journey because we've reached a dark place, or because we've reached rock bottom, and we have no choice but to rebuild, right? And I remember one of the things that like my father had told me when I was like really deep in my depression was that he's like, you brought yourself so low that like if I come in and get you, like I'm just coming down with you. And so I kind of use that metaphor of like, okay, like how am I going to rebuild? Like I've clearly reached rock bottom, and like, am I building myself on something that is substantial, like my connection to myself and really listening to my soul? Or am I building myself back up, the point of myself was like, my connection to myself was like the stone. Or am I building myself up, with things that are, excuse me, menial or external, or what people want from me, which is like the sand, so it's kind of like, how do we build ourselves back up, and what tools are we using? Is it for someone else, or is it really to the greater benefit of our inner being?
Yeah. I like you both touched on it. Like sometimes you got to dig deeper instead of trying to just build back up in like a flimsy and like transient way. And it's or I mean, like I did, and I'm sure a lot of people did, like before you hit that deeper depression, you don't admit that it's falling apart, and you try to just get back to the height you were at before, but you're using sand. You're not finding that bedrock, you're not finding that true stability. But all that sand in between is expectation, like we talked about before. So there's so much pain to get there, and then you're just sitting there and you're finally on the strongest ground you've ever been, but you don't even realize it at first. And a friend of mine actually sent me a photo, Johnny. We have him on the podcast often. And I was when I was in the middle of my depression, and I sent something to him. I was looking at my face, and I said, like, wow, this is when I was like really depressed. And I said, like, I didn't realize then how light I had become, but I can see it in the photo. Even though I was like miserable, I had let go of something that just wasn't serving me anymore. The dog's having a nightmare.
Hey, doggies. Yeah, I think that like when you let go, like you don't just let go and it's like, oh wow, I feel so much better again. Like I feel like people really think that there's like this, like it's just instant, we get instant gratification, we get instant results, but like it's, the inner work will require work. Like it's difficult. And like, we're gonna keep using this sand analogy, but I mean, like if we kind of like, Sammy, you were saying how like, you had your layer of like the sand, and like, that was like what you had to kind of break through. Like imagine we were just sitting with sandbags on top of us. Like how heavy would that be? How like how much do we have a hard time breathing, because we think sand is so fine and it's so light, but if there's a lot of sand, like that could really just be like, just, I don't know, the word's escaping me, but like it's just catastrophic for us, So we kind of have to like really just understand that getting to your spiritual place within is not like a walk in the park at all.
Yeah, I can continue the metaphor in a cool way. Like sand has this kind of absorbing property because it's granular. You know, the fact that it's a flimsy foundation, the fact that like you'll end up in it. And as we talked about before, we need a kind of healthy detachment. And that's in truth, in knowing, you know, like not being flippant about life, but not being invested in a way where when eventually, inevitably, the outcome is not what you expected, that you flip out or that you fall back to the bottom. Like you have a true kind of like space, you know, maybe the foundation thing doesn't work so well. Maybe you just need sky. You know, you just kind of walk the earth in a kind of naked way, and you don't have a home. You don't have that foundation in that sense. You just be the home. I don't know. Now the analogy is falling apart a little bit, but I just like that idea that sand, like you'll sink into the sand, and it'll become something you rely on to be stable, and it will never stay stable long, like we're saying.
Well, you know what? Let's just continue on that, for example. So now let's say we're on a beach, okay? And we're walking in the sand, right? Our feet kind of like, have you ever tried running in the sand? Like it's heavy. You can't really run properly. You can't lift your foot. But if you're walking on, you know, something that's sturdy like rock, okay, yeah, there's a little bit of like, okay, wow, this hurts. There's a little bit of like a crevice here. Okay, I kind of like fell into there for a second. But generally speaking, there's more of a stability. There's more of something that's like, it supports you. So I think when we're in this place of like, kind of like, we could think of the rocks like bricks, you know, we're like laying bricks and we're laying our foundation. It's much sturdier. And I think the bounce back is then that much more supported. If we do have an expectation and it falls through, you know, we have that sturdy stability under us. That's not flimsy because we've taken the time to lay our bricks and lay our stones properly.
And you can take the next step and propel yourself. Whereas if your layers are on sand, you're just going to keep sinking at the bottom.
Yeah, I like that. You can't push off sand.
Yeah.
You can't move forward. You have to have that insecurity again where you're like, oh no, I'll just stay here. I'll just keep building here. Like you can't propel. You can't take a good step or a good kickoff or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And then water comes and then it's all like, you know, it gets all mushy and then like it changes and then like it becomes a whole other substance. Like if water hits rock, it's rock. Like nothing happens, you know. If a stone catches fire, gets hot, you know. Not really sure what happens to sand, but I'm assuming it's gonna burn. But like, you know what I mean? Like there's like the external elements don't end up as detrimental to us depending on the stability that we have within ourselves.
I like the analogy though, as rain or water, it can be external factors, how it can affect your foundation. If it's sand, it's just going to just get sticky and muddy and pull you in more. Rock, it's kind of just going to drip off and evaporate.
I think if you heat sand, it turns into glass. I think it depends on the type of sand, but like, I just wanted to throw that out there because a lot of people don't know that.
I know you can make Greek coffee in sand. Like you heat the sand in a certain way.
What? No, you have to like melt sand. When I'm talking about glass, like you have to like, this is like crazy temperatures. Yeah, like if you see, I forgot what it's called now, petrichor. No, that's the smell of rain. There's a weird word somewhere in my brain. Petrichor. I might find it. Yeah, no, it's a weird word like that. But like when lightning hits sand, it's so much energy. It's so hot. It creates this kind of like splash, and it turns to glass. So you have this crazy like form. And it's like this unique, weird fingerprint of this like crazy burst of energy. Wow. Totally off topic. But I mean,
that's pretty cool though.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the name right now. It's escaping me. But whatever. You know, there's something I want to ask anyone who's like deeper into yoga. I love asking them, what the fuck are chakras? Like, is this like
I love chakras.
Are they sense organs? Can we live a better life through them? Or do they need to be maintained in some way? Like, what the fuck are chakras?
Totally. Okay, totally. I love chakras. So first of all, chakras are not, you can't really find them in the body. It's more of like, you could kind of think of it like a vortex within the body. So it's like an energy center, but you can't tangibly touch it. And they definitely do need to be maintained. So it's kind of like, you know, like you go maintain your car, you get your oil change, your tires changed, all these things. You really do need to be, you know, taking inventory of the different chakras and how balanced they are. So they could be overactive, they could be underactive, or they could be balanced. So ideally, we do want all of our chakras to be the same size. You can think of them as like balls of energy, or like whatever, that are just along your spine, and they kind of just like chill there. And let's say like one of them is imbalanced, then like the one on top and the one on the bottom of like the middle one, let's say that's imbalanced, will naturally get imbalanced as well, because it's like a flow of energy, right? What was your other question about the chakras?
I was just like, what the fuck are they? I put the word fuck in there on purpose because it just seems like very
what
elusive.
The fuck is the chakra?
Yeah,
I'm gonna write a book about that.
That's the clip.
What the fuck are the chakras? Yeah, I just have this weird. It's hard to describe, but like the way our consciousness is kind of emergent or maybe able to be tuned in by the body or the brain or all the neurons or whatever. Like, it's hard to describe the other bodies to people. It's hard to understand that they're happening simultaneously. They create each other in a weird way. And for me, the chakras are this kind of, like you said, they're intangible. It's a very spiritual concept. It has a lot to do with how we feel and how we're maintained physically and emotionally and mentally. And yet, in space and time, it creates this kind of point, this kind of place. So it can be abstract for people, but it's not for me. I just have a hard time putting it into words, and I just love getting other people's words on it. So that's I don't want to load the question too much, but I just wanted to know, like, how do you see them? How do they function to you? Like, you were doing a great job. You can keep going.
I see it as the Force. You guys ever watch Star Wars? Obviously, you've watched
Fuck yeah.
Star Wars. Okay, yeah. So it's basically like the Force, you know. And they talk about like the metachlorians, which I think are like the meridians, which are like smaller, like channels basically within our body, but it's all just channels of energy, you know. And depending on the energy that we have, the energy that we carry, the foods that we eat, the media that we consume, the relationships that we have, like this is all going to come and affect our inner being. And I think that where the chakras come in, it's because it's an easier way to categorize how you're taking care of yourself. So like, okay, let's go with the root chakra. How are my basic needs being met? Kind of like Maslow's again, like, how is my family life? How is my home life? How is my sense of security within the world? Like, how is my financial situation being taken care of? Like, if you feel like all of these answers are like really bad, then, you know, your root chakra this is an indication that your root chakra needs work. If you have the tendency to constantly disassociate, if you have the tendency to constantly want to be anywhere but where you are, maybe your crown chakra is in need of some attention. So I think that it kind of just becomes like a map of how you can spiritually tend to yourself by using one chakra at a time.
Yeah, and I love how you said that they, like, the middle one will kind of tend to the top and bottom one, because I've always had this understanding or kind of story in my head of how they're connected, and it's very much about evolution. And it can be the species or an individual, and it's like a story in a way of how you are cellular. You know, you need these basic needs met, and I'm sure I've said it on the podcast before, but like, you move to the second chakra, and this is like about development and about sexualization and about a kind of like a physical maturity, and then that bleeds into the ego and how you compare yourself to other people and everything else that comes with the ego, but that's where it comes from. And then from comparing others and meeting others, you get this kind of love chakra idea again, and from there you get communication. You get through love, you get real communication with yourself and others, you know? And then that could kind of loosely describe the throat chakra. Again, these are like westernized, kind of like watered down, but still very much like true and useful, like you're saying, like a map. And then through deeper communication, you learn more than you ever could with one life, you know? And through that, you start seeing behind the veil and getting that third eye understanding. And then once you see behind the veil and you see everything is fucking God, you hit the crown chakra and you realize you're going up like this, but the energy's coming down, and you're like, holy shit, I'm trying to be you and you're trying to be me. And it's like,
Yeah.
I'm like sweating from that.
That was good. That was a really good analogy. And I think this is like super pertinent to what we were talking about before. I forgot who told me this a couple of years ago, but they were kind of using like the state of the world as like going through the chakras. So like the first hundreds of years, or maybe like the thousands of years, like, you know, there was, you know, it was all about survival. It was all about, you know, being, you know, taken care of, being sheltered, finding a community, you know, making sure that you had food. We were hunting and gathering. And then like kind of like, let's say the Renaissance time, you know, or like when we started like building stuff, it became more creative. We started populating the earth. We started, you know, art came out of it, you know, like I said, the Renaissance, like that's when all like the major artists started coming out and like really listening to like their intuition. And now we're in the state of like capitalism, which I like to call the third chakra, because like, you know, we're like the imbalanced solar plexus chakra. It's all about greed. It's all about the ego. And hopefully we are switching to a state of compassion, the fourth chakra, you know, where it's like love of self and others unconditionally. And like the chakras, this is like super basic, but it's the best way to explain it. I always say the first chakras are the physical world. The last three chakras are the spiritual world, and the heart chakra is what merges the two, is what kind of keeps the balance between the physical and the spiritual world. So hopefully we're kind of merging that, because
That's so cool. It's like a bridge.
It seems that way. I mean, we're reaching like a peak of chaos in terms of everything right now. So it's what comes after chaos is usually
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, but in any type of scenario, you kind of see we're kind of at the red line, and what usually comes out of that is just like you can't stay in chaos for too long. There becomes compassion and like something new. And I guess a lot of people get scared because we're in the chaos. Sometimes that's all you can see, but it's no different than the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. It's, you know, it's like a very chaotic moment, but usually transformation and beauty comes from it if we make it through that. That's like the moment in history that everyone's talking about right now. I wanted to ask you, do you know anything about the yugas?
no. Well, actually, yes, I do. My first yoga teacher, I went to Kali Yoga. And it was, I
Peter,
think he was calling it like the dark, so it was the dark ages, I think. That's all I know. Very basic. And I haven't seen that teacher in years. So I would love to hear your insight on that.
I don't know too much about it. I just know that everyone's talking about like we're ending because the yuga, Usami, I think you know more about this, but there's like 4.
I forget the details.
Yeah, there's like 4 cycles. And I think each cycle is like 26,000 years or something like that, or 2,600 years, something like that.
No, it's in the thousands.
Yeah, it's a big amount. And right now we're ending, like we're coming to the end of the Kali Yuga, which is like
the dark.
Yeah, and then I think after that is like the feminine energy and all that. Something that's the next transition after. So we're like ending the masculine like drive forward, and we're going into like this more compassionate, loving world. Is the next stage of the Kali. Like I'm butchering it. Anyone who knows more about this is probably pulling their hair, but
but you're getting it better than I am. Because I wouldn't have described it that way, but that's beautiful. Like there's an aggressive imbalance.
Yeah,
you know, it's obvious to most of us, and a lot of that has to do with, you both just talked about it, the lack of love for self and for other, and the byproduct, like the result of that. The symptom that happens is putting the economy first, even in our language. Like when you watch the news, like COVID is like destroying people's lives, and like the policies on top of the sickness are way worse than the sickness. And on the news they still talk about like money. They talk about like jobs. They talk about the economy. They like it's deplorable. I think is a good word. So that's what we're missing. But that being missing becomes a call to action. You know, if you look at like Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, like there's a vacuum now for love, this huge space, and it's just going to be filled. There's going to be this pressure point where it can't be held anymore, and it's going to, like osmosis, it's just going to suck in this love yuga, whatever the next yuga is called. It's going to be like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And it's I like that because it's like hopefully a spiral, but they talk about it like it's just an endless cycle, and we're just kind of fucked. But it's fun. It's like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is my last rodeo on Earth. I'm not super down to incarnate back because this has been one hell of a ride. But I think that, like, you know, on an evolution perspective, like this, the what you mentioned, Nate, and also like the chakra of like the chakras of being like in, you know, we're like leaving the third to kind of go to the fourth chakra. Like that's kind of what gives me hope within all this, because anybody that, you know, questioned the narrative years ago, not just like what's been going on the past year, but everyone that was kind of skeptical about like, you know, how the world was run and all this, like everyone knew that there was something coming. But maybe it wasn't like a conspiracy theory. Maybe it was really just our souls knowing that there was something greater that was coming. And that's why everybody was like, oh yeah, Earth, they need help. Perfect. Like I volunteer. Like, okay, cool. I'm going if he's going. And like, now we're all stuck here. But you know what I mean?
Do you, I wanted to, I don't know how much time we have left. Do you, I feel like there's a division in like these circles and like in your milieu, like in your work circles, and a lot of people it's more physical and more 3D and more tangible, and then there's a group of people who are maybe on the extreme about like aliens and reincarnation, and somewhere in the middle maybe reincarnation is a little more grounded and past lives and all these things. And I'm just prefacing my question, which is like, do you have an experience of this, like through your practices? Like, have you felt this or remembered things, or like have been in some kind of hypnosis states where you kind of experience like memories of past lives? Like do you have a knowing that's personal?
Yeah, I've had a couple of those. Actually, one of them was with Tanya.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I took a few courses with her, and I did always believe like from young that I had like past lives, so I was able to kind of like tap into them only really when it's time to tap into them. Like I can't just like sit into a meditation and be like, oh, bring me back to my fifth life, like the one that I had 5 times before I came here. I think it usually like these things kind of like present themselves when they're in our sphere to either like heal something, like let's say a past karma, or some sort of like past life trauma that you went through that is now being surfaced, like that for you to clear.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time of just being like, oh wow, like I have this gift. Like one of my past life regressions that I had actually done with Tanya was I had seen myself like kind of like in this underground place, and I was like reading and rewriting scrolls, and I was like, wow, that makes so much sense, because like from the time I was like 10 years old, I was like, I'm gonna write a book, like I have something to write. And like I started seeing Tanya, I was like 23 or 24, and I was like, wow, like this is actually like I've been doing this. Like my previous lives, I was writing, I was reading, I was literally taking scrolls and like rewriting them into another one to kind of like preserve them, I guess. Like it was a while ago, clearly nobody's
like
using any
scribe.
scroll now.
Like
yeah.
Can you explain what that session was like? Like what's going on in that moment to have that kind of visual and experience that?
It's like a meditation, to be honest with you, where like someone is like facilitating you just kind of like going back into your past lives by tapping into your Akashic records. So for people that don't know what an Akashic records is, the best way to describe it, I think, is like a massive library where you can kind of like go into your past, because like there are records of this. So this teacher, she would kind of just like put us in a meditative state, and we were obviously used to doing it because we were taking classes with her. So she would often put us in these meditative states, and then through that meditative state, like she kind of like just describes something, and then you go somewhere on your own. It's like she's describing it, but like you're also leading yourself to it. And it was just really funny, because I remember at that point she described something, and I was like, I had seen myself dancing, which was so weird. And I was like one of the first to share. And then this other girl, like maybe like 5 people after me, she was like, that's so weird, I saw you dancing too. And I was like, that's super weird, because like we don't even know each other.
What's
so
Tanya's
I think it's like the group. Sorry?
Oh, I don't mean to interrupt you. Sorry. I just forgot her. I forgot her like
school?
studio name. Yeah,
Shanti Clinic.
Shanti Clinic. She's
Yeah.
I know her, like she's a good friend of mine's mom, and I just known her for years, and like she just wasn't in that world when I first met her, and now she's like a fucking shaman. Like she's powerful.
Yeah, she's
Tanya.
so cool.
Wow.
She's like really, really cool. My friends and I have gone to her a lot for her sessions of like clearing past life trauma and stuff. Like she's really good with kind of tapping into your past and like, you know, like let's say relationships with people. So a lot of times, like let's say we, you know, like we break up with someone and we feel like there's unfinished business, or we feel like, you know, like when we meet them before, or like when we meet them, we feel like we've known them before. It's usually because there's some sort of past life connection. And she was really good at being like, you know, this person was in your life for like this, and like, did you learn the lesson? Because if not, like this lesson's gonna come back, you know. So she's really cool. Tanya from Shanti Clinic.
Tanya Lakiv.
Yes.
Yeah,
She's awesome.
She's hard to read, but she's so like you quickly find that
the Russian aspect.
It's the
of her.
she's
Like,
she's super. She's,
I'm telling you, like she's like super
Ukrainian?
Russian, and they're just colder people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're hard to read.
Yeah.
Stoic. That's what they are. They're very stoic people.
That's a tough culture they come from, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a no bullshit
They don't say
culture.
bye when they hang up. It always threw me off.
I love it.
I would just be talking to her. It's like, hey, could I talk to like her son, you know, like my friend? And then she would be like, no, he's not here right now. I go, oh, okay. Well, thanks. Have a good one. She goes, okay, click.
Yeah.
And I was like, did you just hang up on me? Like, I'm like Canadian. It's like you say bye like 6 times. You say sorry a few times. Like,
Okay, bye.
Yeah.
Okay, bye.
No, but she was very. I wasn't ready when I first met her, and like I even did a few classes. Like I was trying to like do my own kind of yoga career, and she was kind enough to give me her space, and I just wasn't down at the time. I wasn't like able to. But she was great. She was so encouraging, and any little thing that I had any kind of knowledge or skill about, she's like, "You should teach that." And I was like, "What? Like, what did you like? I can't teach this. I'm learning about it." She's like, "Who cares? Just go, just do." And I was like,
She's really, really something, honestly. Like she was a really good teacher, like on my journey, honestly. I think we all need that. And like, you know, it's like that age-old quote, like when the student is ready, the teacher comes.
Yeah.
And I think like, even if you weren't ready in that moment to necessarily teach it, the fact that she believed in you so much, like maybe when it is time for you to teach it, you'll remember that like, hey, she told me like 5 years ago that I should be teaching it, and now look at me now. I'm doing it.
But you were saying also that you had the I interrupted you because I got excited, but like you were saying you had this kind of collective experience, like you were doing this group meditation thing that was guided. I've done some similar stuff with Rebecca Hayden. We've had her on the podcast, and it's like she's gonna walk you through some stuff, but she's gonna ask you a lot of questions, so you're filling in all the blanks, and then but you're saying that someone else saw what you saw. So like, was there other stuff like that? Like you guys had this kind of singular experience, or was
No, that was super weird. That was the only person that had any like correlation or connection, and everyone else had just had their own experience. And I didn't see her in my experience. Like she just happened to see me. I don't know. That was pretty bizarre.
I always have this wonder, because I used to practice lucid dreaming and things like that, and I always have this concept. I've never looked into it much. I wouldn't know what to Google, if you want to put it that way. But there's this kind of inner space, and it's kind of unreal or kind of made for the individual. And maybe things can enter, and maybe you can leave, and then you get into these concepts of like astral projection and who knows what. And maybe it's not called that in the plant medicine circles, but we talk a lot on podcast about like shared collective spiritual experiences where people are like in a room together. Maybe they drank ayahuasca, or maybe they're stone cold sober, but they're doing a drum circle or something, or they're doing a deep like meditation or whatever. And then they're talking to each other afterwards about this shared space and these experiences that they totally had together, even though they were kind of just sitting quietly.
It's frequency. I think it's just both, the group or whoever is just tapping into the same radio signal, same frequency. I had it at Vipassana, actually, now that you're talking about it. I remember there was a guy on my right, and I just remembered I was in like I think it was towards the end of the whole Vipassana where he's introducing like the other type of meditation called like metta or something. And that's just like giving out love to the universe and to everyone. And I just remember I just felt like the guy next to me was having a tougher time, and I just remembered like just sending him every possible bit of love that I had to him, and I'm just like, you got this. I was just saying this in my mind, and then when when Vipassana is over, everyone can talk and stuff. Like he came up to me, he's like, "Bro, you saved me," and like we hugged. You're not even supposed to touch there, but whatever. And he's like, "You saved me that night, that meditation time." I'm like, "You did? You felt that? Because I fucking felt that, man." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just felt like this energy coming from you, and it just felt like this pull, this rush." And I'm just like, "Dude, I was sending you every possible intention that you can think of." And like, how do you describe that to the layman? Like that's we were at a different frequency, and we were connecting at above the physical world.
You send him positive vibes.
Yeah.
We say that all the time on like Facebook or something. But you
It's
did
this
it.
true concept. Like I think
Yeah.
really sending people good vibes is like it's true, you know. And I think that, you know, Nate, like you nailed it, of like just being like on the same frequency or just being in a different plane, right? Like, you know, right now we're in the 3D, but maybe we're gonna both be in the same place in the 5D because we've both tapped into that area within ourselves. And it's like, hey, what's up? You know, like that's cool. I feel like souls have that a lot, like in dream time, you know, where like you kind of like dream of someone, and then like, you know, like you feel like it's not just a dream, like you're actually like connecting, you know. And I feel this a lot. One of my friends passed away a few years ago, and I feel like when there's certain dreams that I have of him where I'm like, it's just like a memory and I'm just dreaming about you because like I miss you. And then there's sometimes where like I'm like, dude, like we went on the same, we got to the same place. Maybe I also projected, I don't know what, but like we're at the same place, and like it's really nice to be in your vibe, you know.
You know, some people that might be skeptical of these kind of conversations right now is a good example is just think of like a concert. When you go to a concert, something changes. Like if you listen to music on your own, it's like whatever. It's you can get into like a nice state. But if you go to a concert, that's almost alchemy. That's like a collective group, and the frequency just gets raised. The longer that night goes, we're all just on like this weird playing, this field of just like unison. And I whoever's been to a concert can definitely relate to this. It's just like there's like a moment where everyone just like peak consciousness in that room, and it's just above 3D. It's like we're all together in this elevated, raised consciousness environment, and it's you can see that in concerts. You can see it in comedy rooms when there's like a really good comedian on stage. The whole room is just elevated, and it's like it's collective.
It sounds like church too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like church, you know, everybody's like elevated, like everybody's like in the same space, and it's really because we're all tuning into the frequency, you know. Like there's just, you know, especially in concerts, you know, it's like, okay, like everything's gonna kind of like slow down, and it's okay, everybody just kind of take this moment, and like everybody's just kind of like going into that space. Same thing with church, you know, there's that moment of silence. So I think it is very possible for people to kind of like tap into like the same energy. I just think that it's such a foreign concept to us that we actually, well, it shocks me when it happens, and I think it's just, you know, we kind of see it as being far-fetched because we're like, what do you mean we're going to tap into the same frequency, you know?
It used to shock me until I started going to these ayahuasca ceremonies. Like the whole concept of shared like connected group setting type of things, like ayahuasca for, I don't know if it was like that for you, but now like
100%.
the more I go though, they have like their set of music that they always play, and there's a lot of regulars that kind of show up more and more, so we're learning the tunes. And now there was like the past few ceremonies I went to, it's like we all knew the lyrics to most of these songs, and we're all on ayahuasca just singing these songs out loud as a group. And I just remember like I felt like waves, and the waves were getting higher and higher, and the waves were just more voices getting involved, and it just took you up to like the highest level you can get to. And I remember my ex told me that in Judaism there's like a lot of prayers that are said out loud collectively in unison, and the whole idea of these prayers are to create like a wave of consciousness to just shoot you into like the spirit world, let's say, and to a higher level.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like very repetitive, and you see that in like repetitive drumming in like these shamanic drumming circles. It's just the beat. The longer it goes on, the more repetition it goes on, the higher frequency it's going to bring you. And there's something to say with like collectivism in a group setting, you know?
Sound.
Yeah.
It's like almost, it's like prayer
and intention too.
Mantras, you say an
Yes.
om at the end of the class, and like everybody kind of like is like oming at the same time, and we're all reaching this
Yes.
vibrational frequency, and it's like for 3 seconds maybe, like we're all just like really just in that place. So yeah, I think it sounds vibration and the power of plenty, right? Just having a lot of people with the same intention.
That's
When you're
it.
chanting mantras and like everybody is just kind of repeating the same thing, we all have the same intention right now. So naturally, I think that like we're affecting the frequency around us. Just because we don't see it doesn't mean that it can't be manipulated by our thoughts or by our feelings or by our sounds, our vibration.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, that's why a concert can be like that spiritual moment, is because everyone's, or pretty much, I would say 90% of everyone's intention going is to have a good time. And it's just like, like that's a beautiful intention, to just have a good time. And then everyone there is having like this collective agreement that we're here to have a great time. And that's where, if enough of them are thinking that, it's just going to grow into this like elevated state.
For sure. I think it's also the performer.
Yeah.
When they realize that they're a conductor of this energy a little bit. And like you said it a little bit, like there's at a concert, there's moments where the energy comes down and then it comes back up, and it's kind of like there's individual songs, but they almost wrote like one long song. Like most people, anyone who's a fan of music, a good album has a kind of theme or a kind of energy to it, and that can be really fun and really like it's almost like there's different bus stops for people to get on. So as the concert goes, there's more and more people on the same bus.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same thing with a yoga class.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's all about just the intention that we have coming into it, and like, just the intention. Yeah.
Yeah, it's dope.
Intention is everything.
Intention, attention, all the tensions. Not tension though. No tension.
No.
Releasing
Not that
tension
one.
with intention.
Yeah. And
like that.
attention.
I wanted to ask you, I mean, like we could probably wrap it up soon. But I was just curious, there's kind of schools of yoga, or let's say avenues, all leading to the same place. But I was just curious if there's one that kind of resonated with you more, or if you just kind of use all of them. Like the way I learned it, I know there's different names from different schools, but like there's Bhakti and Jnani and or Jnana, I guess, and Raja and Karma Yoga, and it's, or Kriya Yoga for some people. Like there's I don't know, like I feel like I need a lot of Raja, and I just need to meditate and do postures, and that's the easiest way for me to get deep. And a lot of like scripture helps and blows my mind, and conversation and satsang, if you will. But I've met bhaktis. I've met people, they never do a posture. They just pray all day or chant, and that's their way to enlightenment, if you will. And I'm just curious if you have like a preferred kind of one that resonates with you, or
No.
No?
I honestly, I feel like I really just kind of like go with the flow. Like I kind of just, if some days I want to do more postures, if some days I want to, like, there were periods where I wouldn't even like practice as much, and I would just do just more meditating than anything else. And then there was just, like, okay, like what kind of human being am I going to be? So I kind of fell into that, and I just, I feel like humans are always evolving, and I think that we're never really at the same place anyway. So I kind of just go with the flow and go with what I need. But I think like not in terms of any of the ones that you mentioned, but I feel like the Ashtanga practice is probably like my most go-to, just because I feel like it has kind of like all of the foundations. Like it has like, the dristi and the one pointed focus. It has like the aspect of like, being in a meditative state and being in a flow state, but it's also like extremely vigorous. Like it's such a hardcore practice. So that's probably what I'm going to gravitate to, rather than a particular category per se, because sometimes I just go with my flow.
Yeah, they sound more like tools, I guess, instead of schools. And like you don't have to pick one; you have to just see what's useful in the moment. And I mean, I've never done Ashtanga deeply, but I've seen classes, and it's kind of like what we were talking about with the concerts. Like everyone knows what to do, in like the intermediate and higher levels, and everyone's breathing at the same time, and it's like it's
quite elevating.
It's a trip.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful, you know, just like watching like a Mysore practice of just, you know, like you're doing your series, you're doing your primary, you're doing your secondary, whatever it is, whichever level that you're on, but you're so immersed in it. And like, you know, it's just like it's from 8 to 9 and everybody from 8 to 9 is just doing their own thing. But there's that ever present like union of breath that we're all breathing the same type of breath and that we're all focused and like, you know, we're all on our mat, but we're all in the same room, you know, so there's that collective and individualness as well. Personally, it's my favorite, honestly. And I've studied and done a lot of different types of yoga, and I would say that one's the coolest in my book.
Yeah, it's a little intimidating for me. It's very, I think because like I said, I kind of have that Rajas like disposition, and I really like the postures. I feel like it's exactly what I need, but it's like it feels like the gym. There's something a little intimidating about it. It requires a bit of discipline to really become.
It's hard.
It's physical. It's just really physical.
That one's a really hard one, you know, and like if you really practice it properly, you can't advance to the next posture if you haven't done and mastered the previous one. So it's like, you know, that can be really daunting on your ego because you're like, I just want to get to the head. I just want to get to the headstand. I just want to get to Shirshasana, you know? And they're like, well, you know, how are your arms? How's your core? How are your legs? No, I just want to get to a headstand. So I feel like it's a really like, it is a super intimidating practice because like, you know, just jumping back to your chaturanga once is hard enough. But I mean, like doing that as a flow, you know, at least 10 times is pretty intense. But I think once you get past that, it really does become something that is, it's a really good foundational practice.
I might,
hell yeah.
I might be a little inspired to take a course or something. And nowadays, I guess I'll just Google it, right? There's nothing's open.
Yeah, just Google the, honestly, if you already know your practice, like you already know your, I could send it to you too. I have it at home. Like if you already know the basic asanas, like all you really need to do is just follow the primary series, which like the first, like, you know, you warm up with like Surya Namaskar A, then you do Surya Namaskar B, you do those a couple of times. And then like you know, there's like Uttanasana, Padahastasana, like it's very basic, the primary series, and you could just follow it. You just follow basically the sequence.
Yeah. I did Shivananda, and it's way lighter on the postures, you know.
Yeah,
lighter.
Well, there's like 12, right? There's only like 12 basic postures in their sequence.
Yeah, well, like I guess 14, because you can crow or you can pigeon, you can like things like that.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of variations in the actual class, but it's pretty much like a very let's say easy or like a calm version of sun salutations.
Yeah.
And then pretty much 12 main postures, and then just get the fuck out. It's more breath, more meditation. Not more than other classes, to be honest. I just feel like less asana. And
I spent a lot of time at Shivananda. I did 2 of their ashrams, and I think that like they were really like, it was really, really disciplined. It was really good.
They are a little more cultish, maybe.
They're super cultish. I went to the one in the Bahamas. I was like, oh my God. What's going on? And you know what was just really crazy? I'm so sorry. I don't want to cut us. I actually do have another appointment at 3. But
okay, yeah.
I was on Paradise Island, and so there's like the casino, and I went to what's it called? The major hotel there. I forgot what it's called. But anyway, so I was at that hotel, and I would walk every day, and I would go to Shivananda because they were on the same island, Atlantis, as it was called. So I would go from the Atlantis to the Shivananda ashram every day.
Great name.
And it's like people would look at me like I was like super weird. Like, you're not really a yogi if you're going back there and like you're having a drink. And I'm like, no, but am I a human? Am I coming here and am I enjoying the two dualities and spectrums of life? Like, I'm coming to start my day with meditation, yoga, and a really good breakfast, and then I'm chilling by the beach, maybe with a mojito. Like, I'm totally allowed to do that, you know. Like,
it's there to be enjoyed.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it was
It's-
really like a perfect balance of like,
The two worlds.
yeah,
Celebrate the body.
Yes. And stop shaming
And-
We're
these.
monkeys.
Yeah.
yes.
That's where we get too full of ourselves sometimes and we forget. You know?
Yeah. There's a lot of that in the spiritual world, you know, or
Mhm.
like, this is what I do. Like, that's great. Does that actually work for you? I'm actually so happy.
Yeah.
That might not work for someone else.
The spiritual
So,
ego is a tricky one.
An unhealthy disconnect.
Yeah.
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 Well, anyway, look, we don't want you to rush there. If you got to go, we loved talking to you.
That was
I'm sure I
awesome.
can speak for Nate. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
loved it.
But-
Come back. I'm sure it would be fun.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'll bother you for it later, I guess. But I would be very interested in your coaching services. I think it would be
totally.
super fun if you have some space in your schedule.
Totally. Yeah, we'll connect back on Messenger, and yeah, this was totally awesome. I really appreciate just being here and shooting it. I think it's
Awesome.
really cool, and I'm down anytime you guys are done.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much, guys. Have a great day, and namaste.
Namaste.
it. Namaste to you.
Bye.
Take care.